In the vastness of space, life was never easy. The galaxy was enormous, stretching beyond what most beings could even imagine. Countless stars, planets, and civilizations existed, many of which never met each other, and some that were constantly in conflict. Among all the known and unknown civilizations, there were those who lived on the edge, in the most dangerous places where survival was a daily challenge. One such group was the Deathworlders, a fleet of elite starships that had earned their fearsome reputation across the cosmos. They were not just warriors, they were survivors, explorers, and occasionally rescuers, moving through space with precision, discipline, and purpose. The Deathworlder fleet was known for being powerful and nearly unstoppable. Their ships were not only heavily armed but also engineered to withstand the harshest conditions of deep space. The crew was trained from a young age to face any threat, whether it came in the form of hostile aliens, extreme weather on unknown planets, or treacherous space anomalies. Life aboard a Deathworlder ship was rigorous. Every crew member had a role, and every action was calculated. Their reputation was built on stories of battles won against impossible odds, daring rescues in the face of deadly storms, and survival in environments where others had perished. Captain Relis was the leader of the fleet's flagship, the Oblivion, a massive ship designed for both combat and exploration. He was a veteran, having faced more crises than most could even imagine. He had a calm demeanor, sharp intellect, and a deep sense of responsibility for his crew. For him, every mission was a balance of strategy and compassion. He understood the risks, the dangers, and the moral choices that came with every journey into uncharted space. Under his leadership, the crew trusted not just his commands, but also his judgment when they encountered situations that no training could fully prepare them for. One ordinary day, as the fleet moved through a relatively quiet sector of the galaxy, the ship's long-range sensors detected something unusual. It started as a faint signal, barely distinguishable from the background cosmic noise. But as the sensors continued to analyze it, the signal became clearer, revealing an urgency that could not be ignored. It was an SOS, a call for help. What made it strange was that it did not match any known communication protocols. The SOS was alien in origin, originating from an uncharted sector of space called Zetanine, a region known for its instability and lack of reliable mapping. Most fleets avoided Zetanine because it was dangerous and unpredictable. Meteors, energy, the storms, and gravitational anomalies were common, and many ships had been lost there without a trace. The discovery of the SOS created a mixture of excitement and caution aboard the Oblivion. For the crew, it was rare to receive a call for help that they could actually respond to. Many signals across the galaxy turned out to be false alarms, traps, or signals from civilizations beyond saving. But this one was different. It had an almost desperate quality, a sense of urgency that suggested immediate danger. Captain Relis called his senior officers to the bridge to discuss the situation. The room was tense, filled with a quiet energy that comes before important decisions. Sensors continued to scan, and officers shared data, debating the best course of action. There were obvious risks. Zetanine was unpredictable, and responding to the SOS could mean walking into a trap. The aliens who sent it might not be friendly, and the planet they inhabited could be deadly. The fleet had to weigh the dangers carefully. Ignoring the signal could mean leaving a civilization to die, but moving in recklessly could cost the lives of the crew and even the ships themselves. It was a situation where courage, caution, and strategy all had to come together perfectly. Captain Relis, after carefully analyzing the data, made a decision. He ordered the fleet to set a course for Zetanine. His decision was not made lightly. He knew the risks, but he also understood the importance of their role in the galaxy. Deathworlders were not just conquerors or explorers. They had the capacity to help, to save lives, and sometimes that duty was more important than the dangers they faced. With the course set, preparations began immediately. Crew members were briefed, ships were scanned for readiness, weapons were checked, and rescue protocols were reviewed. Everyone knew that once they entered Zetanine, things could go wrong in an instant. The journey towards Zetanine was tense. Space seemed emptier than usual, almost as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The stars looked different as they approached the uncharted sector, the light dimmer, the patterns unfamiliar. The fleet moved with caution, scanning constantly for signs of danger. Meteors and debris occasionally forced the ships to maneuver sharply, testing both their agility and the crew's reflexes. Despite the danger, there was also a sense of purpose and excitement. Responding to an SOS, especially one from a completely unknown civilization, was rare and challenging. It required skill, courage, and a willingness to face the unknown. During this phase, the crew reflected on their training. They had been prepared for combat, for extreme survival situations, and even for first contact with alien species. But nothing could fully prepare them for the emotional weight of knowing that lives were at stake, that somewhere out there, beings were depending on them. The anticipation created an undercurrent of tension aboard the fleet. Some crew members were excited, feeling the thrill of a mission that truly mattered. Others were quietly anxious, aware of how quickly situations in space could turn deadly. Captain Reelers took time to address the crew. He spoke not just about tactics and strategy, but also about the responsibility they carried. "We are not here just because we are capable," he said. "We are here because someone needs us. And whatever we find, we will act with honor, courage, and precision. Our duty is to protect life where we can, and we will not falter." His words reassured many, strengthened their resolve, and reminded them of the principles that guided the Deathworlders. It was not just about survival or combat prowess. It was about doing what was right, even in the face of danger. As the fleet neared Zatanine, the SOS signal grew stronger. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, and the urgency in it became unmistakable. The fleet's sensors detected unusual energy readings and environmental anomalies around the source of the S. The planet itself, from what could be seen from orbit, appeared unstable. Storms raged across its surface, and massive cracks in the terrain suggested seismic activity. Life there, if it existed, would be in immediate danger. The Death prepared for the first real test of this mission, landing a rescue team in conditions that were far from ideal. Even before setting foot on the planet, the crew had to consider every possibility. The aliens might be in immediate peril, but the environment itself could be as dangerous as any hostile force. Captain Rillas and his officers devised a plan that balanced caution with urgency. Some ships would provide support from orbit, ready to intervene if the landing went wrong. Ground teams were equipped with survival gear, weapons, and medical supplies. Every team member knew the stakes. One mistake could cost lives, both their own and those they were trying to save. Throughout this phase, there was a sense of anticipation mixed with respect for the unknown. Space was vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. The Deathworlders were entering territory that few had ever seen, and even fewer had survived. Yet, despite the risks, there was a shared understanding among the crew that this was exactly why they trained, why they served, and why the Deathworlder fleet existed. They were prepared to face the unknown, to confront danger, and to act decisively when lives were on the line. By the time they reached the outer edge of Zatanine, the crew was ready for anything, or so they hoped. The SOS signal now dominated the communications array, its rhythm constant, insistent, and impossible to ignore. Captain Rillas ordered the fleet to slow its approach and engage all defensive protocols. The moment of truth was near. Whatever awaited them on the planet below, the Deathworlders would face it head-on with the discipline, courage, and determination that had defined them for generations. This was more than just a mission. It was a test of character, a challenge of skill, and a reminder that even in the most dangerous corners of the galaxy, the choice to act with courage and compassion could make all the difference. The fleet was ready, the crew prepared, and the signal continued to pulse an urgent call for help that none of them could ignore. It was in this moment, as they hovered on the brink of the unknown, that the true weight of their responsibility became clear. They were not just warriors, they were potential saviors, and the fate of lives unknown rested squarely on their shoulders. As the Deathworlder fleet edged closer to Zatanine, a sense of unease spread quietly among the crew. The initial excitement of detecting an SOS had shifted into a careful, almost tense awareness. Every officer, every pilot, and every soldier aboard, the Oblivion, understood that danger could lurk in every corner of uncharted space. Zatanine was not a region that allowed mistakes. It was unpredictable, wild, and unforgiving. The planet itself seemed to radiate a strange energy through the fleet's sensors, a combination of environmental instability and signals that hinted at intelligent life in serious distress. Captain Reelers gathered his senior officers in the command room. The holographic projection of the planet rotated slowly above the central table, showing storms swirling across the surface, jagged mountains, deep craters, and wide rivers of unknown liquid. "We are entering a system that has tested the limits of technology and skill before," he said. His voice was calm, but there was an unspoken tension in the room. "The SOS is real, but we cannot ignore the risks. We do not know who we are dealing with, what environment we will face, or if anyone or anything is waiting for us. Our actions must be precise, but we must also act quickly. Delay could cost lives." The officers nodded, their eyes fixed on the projection. They ran calculations on their consoles, scanning for gravitational anomalies, magnetic storms, and potential landing sites. The SOS signal was strong, but irregular. It appeared to move in patterns that suggested the aliens were mobile, possibly fleeing something on the surface. This added another layer of urgency. Whatever was threatening them had already pushed them to move, and time was critical as the fleet approached the planet. Long-range scans revealed disturbing details. The SOS originated from a series of structures that appeared to be settlements or cities, but they were partially destroyed. Large areas were engulfed in smoke and dust, indicating explosions or massive collapses. Rivers had overflowed their banks, flooding streets and fields. Lightning-like energy storms, perhaps a natural phenomenon or amplified by the planet's instability, struck frequently, making precise landings extremely difficult. Environmental readings suggested high seismic activity, and the ground itself seemed unstable, shifting under even small impacts. Any rescue operation would be delicate, dangerous, and unforgiving. Despite the risks, Captain Rillis made it clear that hesitation was not an option. "Our duty is to respond," he said. "Even if the cost is high, lives depend on us. We will not turn away." Orders were given to divide the fleet into specialized teams. Some ships were tasked with maintaining a defensive perimeter in orbit, monitoring for hostile forces or environmental hazards. Others would provide direct support to ground teams, ready to offer supplies, evacuation pods, or firepower if needed. Rescue teams were briefed in extraordinary detail, preparing for every scenario imaginable from environmental collapse to potential alien hostility. The crew on the ground faced challenges even before setting foot on the planet. Landing zones were narrow and unstable, surrounded by broken terrain and intense storm activity. The SOS signal was intermittent at best, making it difficult to pinpoint the exact locations of those in need. The teams relied on a combination of drones, scanning devices, and sensors to navigate through clouds of ash, debris, and storms. Every step had to be calculated to prevent disaster, and yet time was slipping away. The Deathworlders had trained for hazardous landings, but this was unlike any previous operation. As the first landing teams approached the surface, they encountered their first major obstacle. The terrain was far worse than they had predicted. Massive fissures ran across the ground, cracking under the weight of the landing craft. Trees, or whatever passed for vegetation on the alien world, were twisted and broken, creating natural barricades that forced teams to reroute. Debris from destroyed structures blocked paths, and toxic vapors occasionally erupted from the planet's surface. Even the air, though breathable for the crew, carried particles that interfered with sensors and communications. Every movement was a risk. One wrong step could trigger a collapse, or worse, leave someone stranded in an area that was quickly becoming unstable. Meanwhile, aboard the Oblivion, Captain Rillis monitored multiple feeds simultaneously. He observed the landing teams navigating the hazardous surface, their movements cautious yet determined. The crew maintained constant communication, sharing updates about the planet's condition, obstacles, and the locations of potential survivors. The SOS signal continued to pulse, but its irregular pattern meant that whoever was sending it was constantly moving or hiding. This added another challenge. Rescuers had to locate the signal without losing time or exposing themselves to environmental dangers. Complicating matters further, sensors detected unknown energy signatures moving near the SOS sources. Captain Rillis ordered increased surveillance, suspecting that the aliens might be fleeing a predator or hostile force. The fleet had encountered hostile lifeforms before, but this situation was unique. The signals indicated intelligent movement, patterns that suggested the presence of something highly adaptive and possibly aggressive. The Deathworlders had to prepare for combat while simultaneously executing a rescue mission, a situation that demanded absolute coordination and skill. The landing teams faced physical exhaustion as they moved across the broken terrain. Protective suits and equipment helped, but the constant need to navigate hazards, monitor sensors, and respond to environmental threats was draining. Yet, despite the danger, the crew remained focused. They had trained for these conditions, and their discipline kept them going. Each step was measured, each action deliberate, and each decision carried the weight of potential life or death consequences. As hours passed, the rescue teams began locating signs of the alien population. Small groups of beings were found huddled near damaged shelters, visibly traumatized and weak from exposure to storms and environmental collapse. Communication attempts were made, but the aliens' language was complex, filled with sounds and tones that were difficult to interpret quickly. Nonverbal gestures became crucial as the crew worked to gain trust and assess the urgency of each group's condition. The scene was chaotic. Debris-injured aliens, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of the planet's instability made every action critical. The Deathworlders had to make difficult decisions. Some landing teams were forced to leave behind less critical supplies to rescue as many aliens as possible. They had to prioritize those in immediate danger while preparing contingency plans for those still at risk. Each decision carried moral weight. Choosing who to save first was never easy, but delay could cost lives. The crew relied on their training and instincts, moving swiftly and deliberately, always aware that the planet was becoming increasingly unstable. The planet itself seemed almost sentient in its hostility. Sudden quakes split the ground, storms intensified without warning, and rivers overflowed with violent force. Sensors detected rapid environmental changes that could not be predicted. Captain Rillis realized that time was running out faster than anticipated. The alien survival depended not only on the fleet's skill but also on their ability to adapt to an ever-changing situation. The crew had to stay alert, anticipate danger, and act decisively under extreme pressure. During this phase, the psychological toll on the crew became evident. Anxiety, fear, and exhaustion were constant companions, yet so were determination, courage, and the drive to succeed. Teamwork and trust became more important than ever. Officers coordinated with precision. Ground teams communicated with each other in real time, and the fleet above provided cover and assistance whenever necessary. The SOS signal, constant yet erratic, served as both a guide and a reminder of the stakes. Every pulse demanded action, every moment counted, and failure was not an option. Unexpectedly, some of the aliens attempted to flee deeper into unstable regions of the planet. The rescue teams had to act quickly to intercept them. The challenge was immense, maneuvering through dangerous terrain while ensuring both crew and aliens were safe. Protective measures, ropes, and temporary shelters were deployed, and in some cases, alien beings had to be carried across unstable ground. Every step was a race against time, a delicate balance between caution and urgency. As the day wore on, it became clear that the threat on the planet was escalating. Environmental collapses were becoming more frequent, and unknown energy signatures suggested that potential predators or hostile forces were drawing nearer. Captain Relas made the difficult decision to split the landing teams. Some would focus on evacuation and direct rescue, while others secured areas, prevented collapses, and prepared for potential combat scenarios. The situation required not just bravery but adaptability, intelligence, and absolute discipline. The crew demonstrated remarkable resilience. Injured aliens were stabilized, temporary shelters were reinforced, and evacuation plans were refined as they gathered more data. The SOS signal continued to guide the teams, pulsing rhythmically yet carrying an unmistakable sense of urgency. Every alien rescued brought relief, but the mission was far from over. Captain Relas understood that this was only the beginning. The planet's instability, combined with unknown threats, meant that the Deathworlders were still in serious danger, and every choice they made could have lasting consequences. By the end of this phase, the fleet had gained a clearer understanding of the situation, but the complexity of the challenge was undeniable. They had successfully located and partially rescued the aliens, but environmental hazards, potential predators, and the planet's instability made every further step perilous. Captain Relas convened his officers to review the progress and adapt strategies for the next stage. The SOS had brought them here, but surviving this phase would require more than courage. It would demand ingenuity, coordination, and unwavering resolve. The Deathworlders faced the rising challenge, the combination of environmental danger, alien desperation, unpredictable threats, and the ticking clock of survival created a situation that tested every skill they possessed. It was a mission that pushed their training, instincts, and humanity to the limit, setting the stage for even greater trials to come. As the Deathworlder fleet continued its operations on the unstable planet in Zeta, the situation grew far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The combination of environmental hazards, unfamiliar terrain, and unknown forces had already tested the skills and endurance of every crew member, but what awaited them now escalated the danger to an entirely new level. What had initially appeared to be a mission of rescue was quickly becoming a fight for survival, not only for the aliens they were trying to save, but also for the Deathworlders themselves. The first signs of escalation appeared when the planet seemed to respond violently to the fleet's presence. Storms intensified, lightning struck unpredictably, and fissures in the ground widened suddenly. Landing teams were forced to navigate a surface that was now actively shifting beneath their feet. Rocks tumbled down steep cliffs, rivers of strange liquid began to overflow more aggressively, and dust clouds rose so thick that visibility dropped to mere meters. Every step, every movement, had to be calculated to avoid disaster. A single misstep could lead to injury or worse. While the environment itself had become a formidable opponent, there were now other, more intelligent threats. The fleet's sensors detected rapid, coordinated movement near the SOS signal. It was clear that the aliens they were rescuing were not the only ones on the planet. Something else was there, moving fast, almost like it had been waiting for the right moment to strike. The movement patterns were too organized to be random. Captain Relas quickly realized that they were dealing with a predator or predators of extraordinary skill and intelligence. These beings were not merely dangerous. They were strategic, hunting the very life the Deathworlders were trying to save. The landing teams, already struggling against the planet's unpredictable terrain, were suddenly confronted by the first of these hostile creatures. They appeared massive and terrifying, blending almost perfectly with the environment. Their movements were fluid, almost liquid, and they struck with frightening precision. One moment, the area seemed safe. The next, one of the team members narrowly avoided a deadly strike that could have ended their life instantly. Panic was not an option. Training took over. Each crew member reacted with precision, using their weapons, shields, and tactical equipment to defend themselves while continuing the rescue mission. Captain Relas coordinated the fleet from orbit, directing support where it was most needed. Ships above fired controlled energy blasts to disrupt the predators, keeping them at a distance long enough for ground teams to evacuate the aliens. Communication was constant, rapid, and intense. Every second mattered. The crew had to anticipate movements of the hostile creatures while simultaneously calculating the safest paths for the aliens to reach the extraction points. This required coordination, foresight, and an unshakable focus under extreme pressure. Despite their training, the Deathworlders faced casualties. Minor injuries became serious when the planet's unstable surface complicated medical procedures. Landing vehicles were damaged by sudden ground collapses, and supply drops were delayed by unexpected storms. Yet, the team refused to yield. Each crew member adapted, improvising where technology failed and relying on teamwork to overcome obstacles. The alien population, already traumatized by their planet's collapse, became even more panicked as the predators approached. The Deathworlders had to act quickly, calming the aliens while keeping them moving toward safety. As the critical moment unfolded, Captain Rylus made a bold decision. Recognizing that the fleet could not continue as a single unit without risking greater losses, he split the teams. Some ships remained in orbit to provide defensive fire and tactical support. Others moved closer to the surface, preparing rapid extraction zones and deploying drones to scout ahead for threats. On the ground, landing teams were divided into specialized groups. One focused solely on evacuating aliens, another on defensive maneuvers, and a third on maintaining communication with the fleet. Each group had to operate independently, trusting that the others would execute their roles flawlessly. The situation became increasingly chaotic as the predators proved highly intelligent. They avoided traps, adapted to the Deathworlders' strategies, and appeared to anticipate their moves. What had started as a rescue operation was quickly turning into a high-stakes battle. Captain Rylus and his officers realized that the survival of the entire operation depended on split-second decisions and flawless coordination. Every laser shot, every movement, and every command had consequences. One wrong choice could allow the predators to disrupt the rescue, causing casualties among both the crew and the aliens. The aliens themselves added another layer of complexity. Though they were grateful for the rescue, many were terrified and uncooperative at first. Some ran in directions that placed them in immediate danger. Others froze, overwhelmed by the combination of storms, collapsing terrain, and predators attacking nearby. The landing teams had to manage both the environmental threats and the emotional state of the beings they were saving. This required patience, empathy, and quick thinking. Crew members often had to carry or guide aliens physically to safer zones, making themselves more vulnerable in the process. Amid the chaos, the fleet began to implement more advanced tactics. Drones equipped with sensors and weapons scouted ahead, marking safe routes and warning ground teams of predator movements. Orbital ships created temporary energy shields around critical zones, protecting evacuees from attacks and debris. The coordination between ground teams and orbital support was remarkable. A precise dance of technology and human judgment under extreme pressure. Every team member had a role, and every role was essential. The success of the mission depended on the combined efforts of everyone involved. One of the most critical moments came when a group of predators cornered a cluster of aliens near a partially collapsed settlement. The ground teams had to act immediately. Using a combination of energy barriers, precision fire, and distraction tactics, they created a narrow escape route. Crew members risked themselves to guide the aliens through the debris, sometimes lifting heavy obstacles or holding off predators long enough for the aliens to move. The tension was palpable, each second stretching like an eternity as lives hung in the balance. Meanwhile, Captain Rylus monitored the operation from orbit. He could see the scale of the danger and understood that any mistake could lead to disaster. He made rapid adjustments, redirecting orbital support and coordinating ground team movements. His calm demeanor under pressure reassured the crew and maintained focus amidst the chaos. Every decision was critical. The balance between caution and urgency was delicate. Act too slowly, and the predators could strike. Act too aggressively, and the aliens or crew could be harmed by collateral damage. The predators were relentless, showing signs of planning and adaptation that surprised even the seasoned Death. They exploited terrain weaknesses, avoided traps, and seemed to understand the rescue team's tactics almost instinctively. Each encounter tested the limits of the crew's skill, requiring not only combat ability but also strategic thinking and quick improvisation. The landing teams developed new maneuvers on the fly, coordinating attacks and diversions while ensuring that aliens remained protected and on the move toward extraction zones. During this critical phase, the crew demonstrated extraordinary courage. Injured colleagues were rescued under fire, alien survivors were guided to safety through collapsing terrain, and vehicles were piloted in hazardous conditions with precision that bordered on instinctual. Every crew member was pushed to their limits, facing physical, emotional, and strategic challenges simultaneously. The SOS had transformed from a signal into a battlefield, and the Deathworlders had to fight not just to complete the mission, but to survive alongside those they were rescuing. The alien survivors began to show signs of trust, responding to gestures, following guidance, and moving through dangerous terrain with assistance. Their cooperation was crucial to the mission's success, but it also required the crew to adapt constantly. Some aliens were too weak to move quickly, forcing landing teams to carry or protect them while simultaneously defending against the predators. Others attempted to flee in the wrong direction, requiring quick intervention and careful guidance. The situation demanded adaptability, courage, and relentless focus from every member of the fleet. As the day progressed, the intensity of the operation peaked. Multiple evacuation points were established, but the planet's instability made them difficult to maintain. Storms threatened to wash away paths, fissures expanded, and the predators became more aggressive. Sensing the crew's strategic patterns, the operation reached a critical turning point when a massive quake split part of a landing zone, trapping a group of aliens and several crew members. Immediate action was required. Emergency teams were dispatched, using ropes, temporary bridges, and shields to prevent casualties. The operation became a tense race against both time and natural forces, as well as the predators' relentless attacks. Captain Rillis coordinated every move with extraordinary precision. He issued commands to orbital ships to provide support fire, to drones for reconnaissance, and to ground teams for immediate rescue. Every member of the fleet understood the stakes, and each action was executed with a combination of skill, courage, and timing that few other fleets could manage. The coordination between land and space units, combined with the crew's ability to adapt to unexpected threats, that allowed them to navigate this critical phase successfully. The Deathworlders had faced their most dangerous challenge yet. They had rescued multiple alien groups, survived environmental disasters, and defended against intelligent, aggressive predators. The fleet had demonstrated remarkable adaptability, courage, and teamwork. Every crew member had been pushed to their limits, facing physical danger, emotional strain, and strategic complexity all at once. The SOS signal had drawn them into a scenario that tested every skill they possessed, and the operation's success depended on more than just training. It relied on trust, quick thinking, and unwavering determination. That critical moment had passed, but the consequences of this escalation were clear. The fleet now understood that Zatanine was far more dangerous than previously assumed. Every action going forward would require careful calculation, strategic foresight, and constant vigilance. The Deathworlders had survived the escalation, but they knew that further challenges lay ahead. They had entered the heart of danger and had acted decisively under extreme pressure, saving lives while confronting threats that would have overwhelmed less disciplined teams. The Deathworlders experienced the escalation critical moment, the convergence of environmental hazards, intelligent predators, and the urgency of rescuing alien life created a scenario that pushed every crew member to the edge. The mission's stakes had never been higher, and the fleet's ability to respond, adapt, and survive would determine not just the outcome of the rescue but the survival of both crew and the alien population. This phase proved that courage, skill, and teamwork were as vital as strategy and technology when facing life-or-death challenges in the galaxy. After surviving the planet's violent storms, unpredictable terrain, and the relentless attacks of intelligent predators, the Deathworlder fleet finally began to see a path to success. The critical moments of the mission were behind them, but the danger had not fully passed. Captain Relis understood that the resolution of this mission would require careful coordination, precise timing, and unwavering focus. Every action had to be deliberate, every decision calculated, and every crew member had to perform at their highest level. The goal was clear: evacuate all remaining alien survivors safely and leave Zatanine with minimal losses. The first step toward resolution involved consolidating the survivors in safer zones. After navigating the hazardous terrain and avoiding predators, the landing teams had managed to guide several alien groups to temporary shelters. These areas were strategically chosen based on environmental stability, proximity to evacuation points, and defensibility against predators. The crew worked tirelessly, reinforcing structures with portable energy shields, clearing debris, and establishing safe paths to extraction zones. Each shelter became a temporary haven, a small island of safety in a planet that seemed determined to destroy everything. Captain Relis coordinated with his officers to ensure that every aspect of the evacuation was optimized. Orbital ships provided cover, monitoring the surface for any approaching threats and using precision fire to prevent predators from reaching the survivors. Drones scanned for hidden dangers, mapped the safest paths, and provided real-time information to the landing teams. Communication networks were maintained, allowing teams to relay updates and adjust strategies on the fly. Every second counted, and any delay could allow predators to strike or environmental hazards to worsen. The fleet operated like a single, well-oiled machine, combining human judgment, advanced technology, and teamwork to achieve their goal. As the evacuation began, the alien survivors were guided toward the extraction points. Some of them were injured, exhausted, or too weak to walk long distances, requiring crew members to carry or assist them. The landing teams moved carefully, maintaining protective formations around the aliens to shield them from predators and falling debris. The path to the extraction zones was fraught with danger. Fissures in the ground, sudden landslides, and unpredictable storms made every step treacherous, yet the crew persisted, driven by a combination of duty, training, and compassion. One of the greatest challenges during the resolution phase was maintaining morale and focus among both the crew and the aliens. Many of the aliens had been traumatized by the planet's collapse and the predatory attacks. They were frightened, confused, and often resistant to guidance. The Deathworlders had to earn their trust, using gestures, calming words, and careful leadership to ensure cooperation. Some aliens were hesitant to move, fearing the unknown, while others panicked at sudden noises or movements. Crew members adapted quickly, developing nonverbal communication techniques and reinforcing their protective presence to reassure the survivors. Meanwhile, the environmental threats continued to demand attention. Storms and quakes were still active, and the planet's instability showed no signs of slowing. The landing teams had to navigate around new hazards that emerged unpredictably, requiring constant reassessment of paths and extraction points. At one moment, a sudden landslide blocked a previously safe route, forcing the team to reroute quickly. Energy shields were deployed to stabilize temporary bridges over fissures, and drones provided real-time visual guidance to ensure safe passage. The combination of human ingenuity and technological support allowed the teams to adapt rapidly, preventing what could have been catastrophic losses. Predator, although less aggressive now than during the peak escalation, remained a constant threat. They adapted to the crew's defensive strategies, testing boundaries and probing weaknesses. Some predators attempted ambushes near extraction points, forcing the crew to respond with precision tactics. The Deathworlders used a combination of diversionary maneuvers, strategic firepower, and protective barriers to neutralize threats while minimizing risk to the aliens. Every encounter required careful judgment. Too much force could endanger survivors. Too little could allow predators to attack. The crew's ability to balance aggression and caution was crucial to the success of the evacuation. As the survivors reached the extraction zones, the fleet initiated the final stage of the evacuation, transporting the aliens to the orbiting ships. Shuttlecraft descended carefully, guided by drones and landing teams who ensured that the boarding process was orderly and safe. Injured aliens were given priority, with medical teams ready to provide immediate assistance. For many of the survivors, this moment marked the first real sense of hope they had experienced since the planet began to collapse. Their expressions, a mixture of fear, relief, and cautious optimism, reflected the gravity of the situation and the effectiveness of the Deathworlders' efforts. Captain Relas monitored the operation closely, making real-time adjustments as needed. He issued commands to orbital ships to provide suppressive fire if predators approached, redirected shuttlecraft to avoid unstable ground, and coordinated with landing teams to maintain a steady flow of survivors. His calm leadership under pressure ensured that panic did not spread and that every member of the fleet remained focused on their tasks. The success of the mission depended on precision, timing, and coordination, and Captain Rilla's experience allowed the fleet to maintain order despite the chaos surrounding them. The last phase of the evacuation proved to be the most tense. A group of aliens had taken refuge near a particularly unstable cliffside, and a sudden quake caused part of the ground to collapse. Landing teams acted immediately, using ropes, temporary scaffolding, and energy shields to prevent anyone from falling. Shuttlecraft hovered carefully, allowing the crew to transfer the last survivors while keeping them out of harm's way. The operation required split-second decisions, teamwork, and unwavering focus. Every move mattered, and the success of this final stage would determine whether the fleet could leave the planet with minimal casualties. After what felt like an eternity, the final survivors were safely aboard the shuttlecraft en route to the orbiting ships. The landing teams began a systematic withdrawal, moving back to the evacuation points while continuing to neutralize any remaining predators and monitor environmental hazards. The fleet had successfully navigated the most dangerous challenges of the mission, rescuing the alien population while surviving the planet's extreme conditions. The sense of relief was palpable, though tempered by the knowledge that the planet was still volatile and unpredictable. Medical teams immediately attended to injured aliens and crew members. Energy shields were reinforced around temporary landing zones to provide protection until the last shuttlecraft departed. Drones continued to monitor the surface for signs of danger, ensuring that no threats remained as the fleet prepared to depart. Captain Relas conducted a final review of the operation, assessing the effectiveness of strategies, the performance of his teams, and the condition of the survivors. The fleet had achieved its primary objective, the complete evacuation of the alien population, and the preservation of as many lives as possible under extreme circumstances. The resolution of the mission also highlighted the remarkable resilience and courage of the Deathworlder crew. They had faced environmental chaos, intelligent predators, and logistical challenges that would have overwhelmed lesser teams. Each crew member had adapted, improvised, and executed their responsibilities with precision and determination. Their ability to maintain focus under pressure, to coordinate complex operations, and to act decisively in life-or-death situations exemplified the discipline and skill that had earned Deathworlders their reputation across the galaxy. The rescued aliens, though shaken and traumatized, began to show signs of recovery. They were grateful, cautious, but clearly aware that the Deathworlders had saved their lives. Some of them attempted to communicate, offering fragments of their language and culture, while others simply observed, slowly gaining trust in the beings who had rescued them from the brink of disaster. Captain Relas ensured that the aliens were provided with medical attention, food and shelter aboard the fleet. Recognizing that survival extended beyond mere extraction, it also required care, protection, and the beginning of a process of rebuilding trust and security. As the fleet prepared to leave Zat, Captain Rillis reflected on the mission's resolution. The planet's surface remained volatile, with storms, quakes, and shifting terrain continuing unabated. Any further delay could have endangered lives, both human and alien. By executing a coordinated, decisive, and compassionate rescue, the Deathworlders had not only saved lives but had also demonstrated the importance of courage, teamwork, and adaptability in the face of extreme adversity. The success of the mission was a testament to the skill, discipline, and humanity of the fleet. The Deathworlders achieved the resolution. They successfully evacuated the alien population, neutralized immediate threats, and overcame the planet's deadly environmental challenges. The mission was not without risk or cost, but the careful planning, strategic execution, and unwavering commitment of the crew ensured the survival of both the aliens and the Deathworlder. The fleet had turned what began as a desperate call for help into a successful life-saving operation, proving that even in the most dangerous corners of the galaxy, courage, skill, and compassion could prevail. After the perilous mission on Zet, the Deathworlder fleet had successfully evacuated the alien population, and the immediate danger had passed. The storms, quakes, and predators of the planet no longer posed a threat, and the survivors were safely aboard the fleet's ships. Despite the relief, the aftermath of such an intense operation was far from simple. Captain Rillis and his crew now faced the task of reflection, recovery, and understanding the broader impact of what they had accomplished. The fleet had survived, and the aliens had been saved, but the experience left a lasting impression on everyone involved. In the aftermath of the mission, the atmosphere aboard the flagship Oblivion was a mix of exhaustion, relief, and contemplation. Crew members moved quietly through the corridors, attending to tasks that had been postponed during the chaos of the operation. Medical bays were filled with both human and alien patients receiving treatment for injuries sustained during the rescue. Some injuries were minor scrapes, bruises, and fatigue, but others were more serious, requiring complex care and attention. The medical teams worked tirelessly, stabilizing the wounded, providing comfort, and ensuring that everyone had the support they needed to recover. The alien survivors, still shaken by their ordeal, were gradually adapting to the new environment aboard the fleet. For many, it was the first time they had been away from their collapsing world, and the transition was overwhelming. They were surrounded by beings who looked, moved, and communicated very differently from them, and the sheer scale and technology of the Deathworlder fleet were astonishing. Crew members took time to interact with the aliens, offering food, water, medical attention, and explanations in an effort to build trust. Despite the language barriers and cultural differences, the bonds of empathy and shared survival began to form. Captain Rillis spent long hours in his command room reviewing the mission in detail. He analyzed every step, every decision, and every outcome, seeking to understand what had worked well and where improvements could be made. The mission had been successful, but there were lessons to learn. He considered the effectiveness of the rescue strategies, the performance of the landing teams, the coordination between orbital ships and ground crews, and the ways in which the crew had adapted to unexpected challenges. This reflection was not just about evaluating performance. It was about ensuring that the fleet could continue to respond effectively to emergencies in the future. The resolution of the mission also brought a profound sense of accomplishment and pride. The Deathworlders had faced extreme environmental hazards, intelligent predators, and logistical challenges, yet they had persevered. Every crew member had demonstrated courage, skill, and dedication, working together to save lives under conditions that few others could have survived. The aliens had been rescued, and the fleet had navigated a chaotic and hostile environment with remarkable efficiency. This success reinforced the values and principles that had guided the Deathworlders for generations: courage, teamwork, adaptability, and a commitment to protecting life when it was in danger. Beyond the immediate practical considerations, the mission had a deeper impact on the crew's sense of purpose. Many had joined the fleet for the thrill of exploration, combat, or survival, but missions like this reminded them of why their training, discipline, and skills mattered. They were not only warriors, they were protectors and saviors in a galaxy that often seemed indifferent to life. The experience reinforced the idea that strength was not enough. Compassion, empathy, and the willingness to act in the face of danger were equally important. For many crew members, the events of Zatanine would remain a defining moment in their lives, shaping their approach to future missions and their understanding of their role in the universe. The alien survivors began to share fragments of their experiences, providing the crew with insight into the challenges they had faced on their collapsing world. They described storms that tore through their cities, quakes that split the ground beneath them, and predators that hunted them relentlessly. These accounts helped the crew understand the gravity of the situation and the resilience of the beings they had saved. Through these interactions, the Deathworlders gained a deeper appreciation for the diversity and complexity of life in the galaxy, as well as the courage and perseverance required to survive in even the most hostile environments. As the fleet moved away from Captain Relis convened a meeting with his senior officers to discuss the long-term implications of the mission. They reviewed the condition of the survivors, assessed the fleet's readiness for future operations, and considered the broader strategic and diplomatic impact. The successful rescue had established a bond between the Deathworlders and the alien civilization, creating the potential for future cooperation and mutual support. The mission had not only saved lives but also laid the foundation for an interstellar relationship that could benefit both parties in the years to come. The experience also prompted reflection on the challenges of decision-making under extreme pressure. Captain Relis and his officers recognized that every choice they had made, from tactical maneuvers to resource allocation, had consequences that could have resulted in failure or loss of life. They discussed the importance of maintaining situational awareness, balancing caution with urgency, and trusting the expertise and judgment of their teams. These discussions reinforced the principles of leadership, teamwork, and strategic thinking that were essential for operating in a galaxy filled with uncertainty and danger for the crew. The aftermath of the mission was also a time to process the emotional impact. The intensity of the rescue, the constant threat of predators, and the environmental hazards had created high levels of stress and anxiety. Many crew members experienced relief, exhaustion, and even a sense of pride in their accomplishments, but they also faced the psychological effects of encountering life-or-death situations on a daily basis. Support systems within the fleet, including counselors and team debriefings, helped the crew process their experiences, share insights, and recover emotionally. This attention to mental well-being ensured that the crew remained resilient and capable of responding to future challenges. As the fleet continued its journey through space, the rescued aliens gradually began to acclimate to their new environment. They were provided with food, medical care, and shelter, and the crew facilitated interactions to help them understand the technology and culture of the Deathworlders. Communication remained a challenge, but gestures, visual aids, and patient interaction allowed for the gradual development of trust. Some aliens even began to assist with minor tasks aboard the fleet, contributing in small but meaningful ways and building confidence in their own abilities. Captain Relis reflected on the moral dimensions of the mission. The decision to respond to the SOS had carried significant risk, and there had been moments when hesitation could have jeopardized the lives of both the aliens and the crew. Yet the successful execution of the rescue reinforced the importance of acting with courage and compassion, even when outcomes are uncertain. The mission demonstrated that ethical responsibility, when combined with skill and discipline, could result in profound positive impact. It was a lesson that resonated deeply with the entire fleet, shaping their understanding of duty and the responsibilities of those who wield power and capability in the galaxy. The resolution of the mission also provided valuable lessons for future operations. The fleet had learned how to navigate highly unstable environments, coordinate complex rescue operations, and adapt strategies in response to intelligent, unpredictable threats. These lessons would inform future missions, improving the fleet's readiness and ability to respond effectively to emergencies. In addition, the successful rescue highlighted the importance of trust and communication, both within the crew and with the alien survivors. Building and maintaining trust was essential for operational success, and the experience had strengthened the crew's ability to work cohesively under pressure. As the fleet settled into a routine following the mission, the broader significance of the events became clear. The Deathworlders had not only saved lives but had also reinforced their reputation as capable, disciplined, and compassionate guardians in a galaxy often characterized by danger and uncertainty. Their actions demonstrated that even in the harshest environments, courage, skill, and empathy could prevail. The mission served as a testament to the values that defined the fleet: resilience, adaptability, teamwork, and an unwavering commitment to protecting life. In the days following the operation, crew members reflected individually and collectively on what had occurred. Many wrote personal reports or journals detailing their experiences, documenting the strategies they used, the challenges they faced, and the emotions they encountered. These reflections provided both practical insights and personal growth, allowing the crew to process the mission and extract meaningful lessons. For many, the events of Zatanine became a defining chapter in their careers, with shaping their understanding of themselves, their capabilities, and their role in the universe. The rescued aliens, too, began to show remarkable resilience. Though traumatized and uncertain, they gradually adapted to life aboard the fleet, learning to trust their saviors and gaining hope for the future. Captain Relis ensured that their needs were met, providing not only physical care but also opportunities for communication, learning, and cultural exchange. The interactions between the crew and the aliens fostered understanding, empathy, and mutual respect, creating bonds that would last long after the immediate crisis had passed. The aftermath of the mission highlighted both the challenges and the rewards of responding to an SOS in a dangerous and unpredictable environment. The Deathworlder fleet had faced extreme hazards, intelligent predators, and logistical complexities. Yet they had succeeded through courage, skill, and coordination. Lives had been saved, relationships had been established, and the crew had gained invaluable experience that would enhance their ability to face future challenges. The mission's resolution demonstrated the profound impact that disciplined, compassionate, and capable individuals could have, even in the most hostile corners of the galaxy. As the fleet continued its journey away from Zap, Captain Reelis took a moment to reflect personally. He thought about the crew, the rescued aliens, and the lessons learned. He understood that survival in space required more than strength and strategy. It required compassion, adaptability, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The events of Zetanan had tested every aspect of their abilities, from tactical skill to emotional resilience, and had proven the value of working together toward a common goal. The fleet had faced the worst the planet could offer and emerged not only victorious but also wiser, stronger, and more connected as a team. The Deathworlders experienced the aftermath reflection, a period of recovery, learning, and understanding. The mission had tested them in every conceivable way, yet it had also demonstrated the power of courage, teamwork, and compassion. The crew had saved lives, forged bonds, and reinforced their sense of purpose. The alien survivors, once lost and terrified, now had hope and protection, and the fleet, having navigated one of the most dangerous missions in its history, carried forward knowledge, experience, and moral insight that would shape its actions in the years to come. The events of Zetanan would remain etched in the memories of all involved. They were a testament to the capacity of individuals and teams to overcome impossible odds, to act decisively under pressure, and to preserve life in the face of overwhelming danger. The aftermath of the mission was not simply about recovery. It was about understanding, growth, and the affirmation that courage and compassion, when combined with skill and discipline, could make a profound difference in the galaxy.